There's a lot of buzz around micro-frontends right now, and you may be asking yourself, well, how do I try it out? No worries, I got you covered. In the next 10 minutes, I will get you set up with micro-frontends using module federation on 3 different apps that you can experiment with and try it out for yourself. Okay, so let's go and first create a new directory called micro-FEs, and I'm going to bring up VS Code on that directory. Now within VS Code, I'm going to bring up the terminal, and I'm going to use an npx command called create mf app to create our first app. So we're going to call this the host app, and it's going to consume a micro front end from a remote app. So we'll start off calling this one host and put it on port 8080. And for this, we're going to use SolidJS and JavaScript and Tailwind. Now I'm going to go into host and start up Yarn on that. And while we're there, I'm going to go create another terminal. And this is where we're going to create our remote app. So again, we're going to use npx create mf app. And now we're going to have our remote app, and it is going to have our micro front end in it. So we'll call this one remote. We'll put that on port 3000. You can put on whatever you want. And again, I'll use SolidJS and JavaScript and Tailwind. So now I'll go into that remote directory and get that yarn started. Now I'll go over into the host app and actually start up the app. All right, looking pretty good. We've got the name of the app. We've got the framework that we chose, JavaScript and Tailwind, and the title of the page is host. So pretty good start there. Let's go over and go into the remote directory and then do yarn start from there. And now we got our 2 apps running side by side. We got host on port 8080 and remote on port 3000. And they're both running SolidJS. So if you're asking yourself, why SolidJS and not React? Well, I do want to show off the cross-platform nature of micro-frontends, and this is going to be the way that we're going to do that. So let's start off by creating a micro-frontend in SolidJS on this remote app. We're going to make a counter. So we'll go back over into our Visual Studio, close down this, bring up remote. We can see that we've got an app.jsx file in here that basically puts up what's on the screen. So we need to go and create another component. Call that one counter.jsx. And we're going to bring in from SolidJS create signal. And that's how you track state in SolidJS, basically the equivalent of use state in React. Now I'm going to export a default function and create a count and a set count. Using that create signal, start off with 0, and then we'll just return out a div. And then within that, another div that has the count in it. And then I'm going to add a button that basically just increases that count. I'm going to add an on-click handler that then, when pressed, sets the count to the current count plus 1. All right, pretty cool. Let's go over to our app.jsx file and bring that in. I'm going to bring in counter from that local file. And I'm just going to use it right here. All right, we've got our counter and it works great. Now, of course, we want it over in host over here. So how are we going to turn this into a micro front end? How are we going to expose our counter from that remote application? Well, we're going to use module federation for that. Now, if we were to use npm, what we'd have to do is extract that counter into its own library and then import it back into remote and host. And then when we want to make a change, we'd have to change that shared library and then republish both of those applications. What a bummer. Well, totally different scene when it comes to module federation. Let's go check it out. So I'm going to go back in here and we'll close out these files and then go into our Webpack configuration, scroll all the way down to the module federation plugin, and we can see that you've got the exposes key and the remotes key. These are the most important ones. So the exposes key, we're going to say that we want to expose that counter from this remote application, and you just give it the path we're looking for. And now all we got to do is just restart our Webpack to get that change to be effective. And now if we look over on our remote, everything seems to still be working, but there is a new file in there that's automatically generated by Webpack, and it's called remote entry, and it is a manifest of all of the modules that are exposed from that remote. And so I'm going to copy the URL of that and then go back over into our host app, go into our Webpack config, and again, scroll down to that module federation plugin. But this time, instead of exposing anything, I'm going to say that we have a remote. We have some remote code that we want to be able to bring in. In this case, the name of it, we're going to use remote. We're going to say that we have remote at, and then that URL. And why remote here? Well, this remote maps to this name down here. So this is the name of the federated module package effectively. And so you want to make sure that those two match, but you can actually use anything you want here. So let's go back into here up to app.jsx in the host. And now we're going to import that counter from remote in this case, and then counter. And then again, I'm just going to use it just like I did before. Save that out. And now it's telling us it can't resolve remote counter, but that's only because we didn't reboot our Webpack. Let's go and do that. Restart that. And now if I refresh, boom, I see the counter and it's shared between these two. Don't believe me? That's cool. It's fine to be skeptical. Let's go back into our remote, make a change to counter, and we'll do a little bit of Tailwind magic. We'll change that class to something along the lines of a background blue 900 with a text color of white and a padding of 5. Let's see, if I change remote, that's obviously going to change. We know that. And if I refresh host, what happens? Bam, you got the code. There it is. So Module Federation allows you to runtime share code between these two applications, which is really cool. But of course, I'm sure you're like, hey, I'm not a SolidJS developer. I'm a React developer. How is this going to work in a React app? How am I going to have my React app consume this SolidJS micro front end? Well, don't worry, we'll get there. But in the meantime, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button right now. And of course, hit that subscribe button and click on that bell if you are interested in more advanced front-end topics just like this, the kind of stuff we cover on this channel all the time. All right, let's jump back into VS Code. And in this case, I'm going to create a new app. And again, we'll use npx create mf app. And this one we're going to call React Host. And we're going to put that on port 3001. You can use whatever you want. Hit React, JavaScript, and again, Tailwind. And then I'm going to jump in there, React Host, and start up that yarn. In the meantime, I'm going to go back over into our host app, in the Webpack config, and steal that remote because it's going to be the same between the two. And then pop that into our React Host Webpack config. Scroll down again to the Module Federation. Remotes, away you go. Okay, but of course our React host doesn't know anything about SolidJS, and we don't really want to teach it SolidJS by importing SolidJS so that it can mount it. What we're going to do is actually wrap our SolidJS component in essentially a universal function that just takes an element and will automatically mount that application into it. So let's go back over here into our remote, and then take the app, which is what's doing the render right now, and copy it. And then I'm going to create a new file called counterwrapper.jsx. Paste that in there. I don't need any of this code. So I'm just going to remove that. And now I'm going to export a default function. Takes an element and it's going to render a counter into the element. Just like that. Now, the only thing we need to do is expose that. So let's go down into our Webpack config and expose this additional module. Again, counter wrapper. And we need to stop and restart our Webpack. No big deal. So now we got our counter wrapper going. Let's go over here in our React host and go into our app.jsx file. And here we're going to import that counter wrapper from remote counter wrapper. And then in React, we're going to bring in use ref and use effect. Now down here in the app, I'm going to turn this into a function that has a body on it. And we are going to take this div and give it a ref. Call this div ref. Get rid of its contents, get rid of these two lines, no problem. Now we'll create that div ref by using useRef, set to null, and now we want to do useEffect. Give it a function, and we're going to give it an empty dependency array, meaning that it should only ever run the once when it gets mounted. And then within that useEffect, we're going to call counter wrapper, and give it the current value of that div ref, which is going to be the element that we want to mount onto. All right, so let's go take a look over here. Our React host is all set up, so let's do a yarn start on that. And there you go. You've got a React host, you got a fully functional SolidJS micro front end embedded into it just like that. Pretty cool. I'm sure you have a lot of questions though. So there is a link to a playlist that I've created of Module Federation videos that I've created. Feel free to dig in there. There's lots of great stuff on Module Federation in there. There's also a really good book, Practical Module Federation, that was written by myself and Zach Jackson, the person who created Module Federation in the first place. And of course, I'm sure you have more questions, so be sure to put those in the comment section down below. I'm happy to answer whatever you have. Of course, feel free to hit that like button on this video and hit that subscribe button if you like this video and really want to see more advanced front-end topics like this one.